Thank you for joining me here on the last segment of today's show, kind of capping off all the recaps that we have been doing. I had to bring this one up because while maybe a lot of people didn't tune into this game originally just because you looked at the matchup and you're thinking the Jets, travel or the Giants, traveling to the Seahawks, it's not going to be a great game. The afternoon window, I feel like a lot of times leaves a lot of people disappointed. The Giants traveling across the country basically to take on the division leading Seahawks without Malik Nabers, without Devin Singletary. I feel like a lot of people kind of just wrote it off based on that fact, but Seattle was coming off of a loss and still impressed going toe to toe in that matchup against the Lions. But I think now, while this was also a loss, this one was definitely more alarming, I guess you would say, because losing to the Giants with all those circumstances and the Giants, putting up their second highest point total of the season to go to 2-3 now, and the Seahawks losing back-to-back games to go to 3-2. The most unexpected result, as much as the Cardinals, beat the 49ers on the road as well. This one definitely takes the cake just because, the Giants, everything was so predetermined and revolved around their rookie wide receiver Malik Nabers, and the fact that you didn't have him, what was Daniel Jones going to look like, and were they going to be even more conservative now that Malik Nabers wasn't there, or without even Devin Singletary, what and who were you going to turn to in that running game to get better results if that even was possible? And they did exactly that, and they actually relied on these two guys that I have on the screen, right? Tyrone Tracy Jr. and Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton definitely more well known, but I don't think a lot of people knew who Tyrone Tracy Jr. was at all. Still, maybe even some Giants fans didn't know who he was. But he had an amazing day. I tuned back into the game and looked at his stats, and I'm like, where did that come from? From the times I was watching, I feel like I didn't really see him break out too many big runs or anything like that. It might have just been me, but he had 18 carries for 129 yards, an amazing day for a running back. Darius Slayton led all wide receivers, 8 receptions for 122 yards and 1 touchdown. Wan'Dale Robinson also added another touchdown with 6 receptions as well. And Daniel Jones, for the idea that he could have been more conservative or that he was just going to get absolutely killed because he didn't have Malik Nabers, he finished 23 of 34 for 257 yards and 2 touchdowns on the day. Ironically, one of his better performances without 2 of his best players. So, how do you explain that, right? If you're a Seahawks fan or even a Giants fan, how do you explain Daniel Jones at all throughout his entire tenure in New York, honestly? But those two guys definitely stood out the most for the Giants. And then on the other side, Geno didn't have an awful day. He was 28 of 40, 284 yards and a touchdown. He was sacked 7 times. So where the Lions really couldn't get to him, and I mentioned that as a problem for them a couple segments ago, the Giants, one of the things they do well is get to the quarterback with Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence. They sacked Geno Smith 7 times on Sunday. So obviously you can't work with that too much, getting hit like that repeatedly. And the rushing wasn't that great either. Geno Smith actually led all rushers with 72 yards on 4 carries, and Kenneth Walker didn't really do too much in this game. I'm pretty sure he only had like 30 or something yards, maybe even less than that. And Tyler Lockett also had 75 yards on the day, but they just missed out on the big moments. I felt like all the big moments, all the big potential swing points went to the Giants. And looking at this game and how it played out, it's ironic that I mentioned that because this game started off with a huge momentum swing, right? The Giants had the first drive of the game, or the Giants were in their first drive, and it was going great, to just start this game with a 16-play drive, and it looks like they're about to punch it in. Then they fumble the ball at the goal line, and the Seahawks run it all the way back, and the Giants are losing when they were an inch away from taking the lead in the most Giants way possible. They fumble the ball, and now they're losing 7-0 after doing all that hard work. They just squander it away, and now if you really thought this game wasn't going to be close after seeing that, you probably turn the game off. But it only got better from there, because from that point on, the Giants kind of, didn't blink, and they were able to, after a few drives, get it back to 7-7, and then a field goal apiece had this game at 10-10 going into halftime. And then after that, really in the second half, if people tune back into this game, the Giants defense really began to show up more in the second half, with forcing a fumble on DK Metcalf and scoring a touchdown to Darius Slayton right after that. And now they take the lead 17-10. And I didn't like the fourth down call by the Seahawks. I forget what drive it was. It might have been the one right after Darius Slayton scored, right? They're feeling a little bit more urgency to not let this game get away. They go for it on fourth down, and I didn't like the call, like I said. I think it was like 4th and 1 or something like that. It was 4th and short. And it kind of makes sense running a play action pass, but to fully turn your back on a defensive front where you could clearly see that they're going to send in a lot of people, right? Based on the lineup and everything like that, you clearly see everyone pushed up to the line of scrimmage, and you know that at least 2 guys or 3 guys are coming at you at once to run a play action pass where you turn your back completely away from the oncoming rushers. And then Geno Smith turns around and he has a guy right in his face, and the play's pretty much dead at that point on. So I didn't love the call there. I would have preferred a much more simpler call, and just running it up the middle or something like that. But, that was a big moment that the Giants clearly won, on top of forcing a fumble right before that. And also, after that point, it was 17-10, and then afterwards it got to a score of 23-13. After the Giants kicked a couple more field goals, and the Seahawks also tacked one on with 6 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter. Before that, before the 6-minute mark, the Seahawks were trailing by 10 points. But then after that, the Seahawks scored right before the 2-minute warning, making it 23-20. And now we have a game. Now we're thinking, all right, the Seahawks losing the turnover battle, losing the sack battle, losing the big moments. This is their last gasp attempt to try and make a comeback now. Are the Giants going to hold, or, like I'm sure most of us thought, are they going to squander this like the most Giants way possible, right? But right after that, the Seahawks forced the punt, and they were going to be able to tie the game at 23 before, of course, the Giants jump over the line of scrimmage on that kick to tie the game. I think it was Isaiah Simmons that jumps over the line, blocks the punt, and Bryce Ford-Wheaton returns it all the way back for a special teams touchdown that pretty much seals the game at 29-20 in favor of the Giants. And like most of the game was going, the big moments, the momentum swinging moments, other than the first one where the Seahawks returned it all the way back, the Giants won the majority of those plays in a big game where the Giants were missing a lot of players. They got contributions everywhere, right? From their defense stepping up with the 7 sacks, with forcing fumbles, with their special teams also stepping up and blocking that field goal, obviously, to not only preserve the 3-point lead, but to run it all the way back and close the game out. You obviously can't plan for anything like that to happen, but sometimes that's how it plays out, and these desperate teams pull out these miraculous performances from a Tyrone Tracy or a Darius Slayton that you never could have predicted. But a lot of times football comes to those situational moments, right? The crucial fourth down calls, the decision to go for it or not, how you stop a fourth down, the turnover battles is always a big one, how you end a half versus how you start a half as well. All those things matter so much in football that the Giants, I felt like, won the situational football battle in this game, and they ended up stealing one here over the Seattle Seahawks. And now, on offense, Darius Slayton played a tremendous game. Their running back, Tyrone Tracy, like I said, played great. And credit for them for not being too conservative also with Daniel Jones. You saw it with Darius Slayton. He caught a couple big passes down the field. That was encouraging to see. And now you kind of only hope that gets better going forward, right? The Giants are 2-3 and are showing a little bit of fight here. So considering how maybe the Eagles look, or the Cowboys even, the Giants could have beat the Cowboys, if you guys remember that. They could have beat them in that game, and they probably should have beat them in that game. So the Giants could be like 3-3 right now if you really think about it. And then we get into the hypotheticals too. They lose a game not allowing a touchdown to the Commanders. So the Giants, like could have a winning record right now if you really think about it. If it wasn't for some of the mistakes they made. But regardless of that, they showed some of their fight, some of their talent on display, and it was a surprise nonetheless from the Giants' standpoint, but also the Seahawks, right? Dropping a game like this, even with guys like Leonard Williams back, Jerome Baker back, it was still a concern to me to see the Seahawks play pretty bad on defense as well. And the Giants did just make plays, but it is something that we should pay attention to a little bit more, I would say, with the Seahawks team. But it was a good one for the Giants. The Seahawks will try to get better off of this game tomorrow when they play the San Francisco 49ers, an even bigger game than we just had over this past weekend. So we'll be tuning into that. But for right now, that's going to wrap it up for today's show. Thank you guys for joining me. Please remember to like, follow, and subscribe to the show, as well as following the network on all forms of social media. Make sure to check out the GSMC Podcast Network channel and the GSMC Sports Network channel on YouTube for more coverage around the NFL and more content around the Chip Shot Football Podcast for you guys to check out. And also, tune in every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time for more of these live shows where we cover more NFL, more storylines, more debate topics, and all those sort of things around this league. I've been your host, Manny Maradiege. Join me back here again tomorrow, same time, where we start talking about Week 6 in the NFL.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to